Good morning, everybody. This is Jennifer Harmoning, President of the Burnsville Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for joining us this morning for our first October Real-Time Solutions webinar. This is a presentation, a partnership between the Apple Valley, Burnsville, Hastings, Lakeville, and River Heights Chambers of Commerce, with a special thank you this morning to our October webinar sponsor, Comcast. They're a great chamber partner and help us with providing this webinar. It's a special treat for me today to present our speaker, who's going to talk about developing successful strategies for a very uncertain marketplace. David Stark is a longtime friend, colleague, and very well-respected speaker, and I'm pleased to introduce him to you today. David, I'm going to turn the program over to you.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thanks for everybody tuning in. My name is David Stark, and I'm going to go through a series of steps on how we develop successful strategies in a very uncertain marketplace. And so I'm just going to dive in. I thank you also for the people that have already asked questions, and I'm going to incorporate those into the process we're going to go through. So let's go ahead and dive in together. The first thing I think it's important in a time of lots of uncertainty, I'm defining uncertainty in this seminar as we don't know how to look at this marketplace, whatever marketplace we find ourselves in. I think it's really important for you, first of all, to identify the uncertainties that are having the largest effect on your business success. This diagram, of course, you can see in the brown bubbles that those are the macro trends that come into, and notice the ones come right into the number threes, which is where the micro environment of your particular industry is. And of course, your particular industry has rivals and customers and substitutes and suppliers and entrants. And so the first thing is what exactly are the largest ones? So for example, in the questions that were asked, some of the leadership from Buck Hill asked, how do we communicate safety? And what's happening, of course, is the environmental trend of COVID is coming right and affecting their customers' willingness to come out and ski. And so in their case, it's directly on their customers. In another case, there's some people that have stores that are shut down. And in their case, the specific situation is the political trend. And of course, our governor is going to update us next week about can we open and how much can we open in our physical businesses. And so their specific problem has to do with the reality that the uncertainty of what the governor is going to do and how do we respond to that as a business, right? And there's other people, there's a couple of different real estate situations. And in one case, when it's residential real estate, it's, how do we trust the pipelines? In this case, residential has held up better than most, although what's happening actually is that the suppliers, in other words, the open properties, are shutting down. And so the problem is do we have enough places that we can show, because it's a seller's market and that's gotten stronger. Its flip side is that we have on here somebody who's on the commercial side of real estate, where of course there's so many people that are working from home and people are trying to kind of renegotiate their leases into subleases right now. So it depends on where you are. We've also got a financial institution on here where it's the economic trend that's causing people not to be able to pay or even in bankruptcy. So my big point here to begin with is that we start by saying, well, what are the specific uncertainties that are most affecting our business? There may be a lot of them right now, but that is always step one when I'm working with businesses or businesses do, in my opinion. The second step, probably a lot of you have already been doing, but in this particular year, safety for all your stakeholders has to be first and ongoing. I noticed looking on the Buck Hill website, they've done a great job of publicizing all that they're doing in order to make skiing safe. And it's a great example, but it's true for all of us. I think obviously for the Buck Hill folk, it's actually convincing the parents that their kids are going to be safe out there, and I'm sure that's the ongoing focus. But safety is definitely got to be part and thought about, and your ongoing concern when you're developing strategies to succeed. Second or third is this, is that open up every kind of communication with your current customers that you can. This is a customer I work with where we put all the market segments in a graph, and I want you to respond to this. Plan on centering the business around constant updating of information from your customers. And obviously your customers by the major segments. As you can see, in this case, there's one large customer they really needed to pay attention to. And so your business, whether it's just you or there's 10 of you or whatever, constantly be taking information from your customers, even if you have to initiate, right? So why? Because that data is going to change. It's not even quarter by quarter right now. It could be day by day or week by week. And so good strategies are constantly right now got to be informed. And so it could be surveys, it could be phone calls, it could be trends, it could be feedback, because right now strategies are going to be developed out of being responsive, flexible, resilient. Those words are really critical at this moment. So think in terms of market segments. And if I was to get specific, it would be like this. Who paid us this month? Who used to pay us 3 months ago? And who's planning on paying us next month? In other words, you want to focus on the segments that right now are actually going to be paying or could be paying. And that ongoing feeding of information on sometimes daily, at least weekly basis, is going to help you be better. And there's 3 trends you probably are all experiencing. One is people are headed towards essentials, and whatever essentials mean in your industry. They are headed towards lower cost, not always lowest cost, but lower cost. I want you to think right now in terms of a homebody existence for work and life. So think about your business in terms of these people are at home, both for work and obviously for living. And how can we best think about these trends relative to that kind of existence over the next year is what I would be planning for in terms of that. So communications is critical right now, and all the information you can gain so you can use that to adjust strategies. That's the third thing I find important. Number 4, visualize your business model, even if it's just high level like this, or your capability system. Why? Because when you have a visual picture of it, like this happens to be a printing point of sale organization, I want to ask the question, well, what part of the model is working well at the moment? So I want to focus on what still is working, even if there are things that are not working. Secondly, where are the bottlenecks at the moment, and how might we work around them? Now, those people that are in store settings, obviously the problem is they may not be able to come in, or they come in on a very limited basis. And so what lots of responses are, well, how do we go out to them? So is it drive up? Is it delivery? Is it that we're going to actually take the stuff in sacks or boxes or kits or whatever out to their cars? Is it, how can we meet them out there, for example, rather than them having to come in here? And so what's the bottleneck, and how can we think about it differently in terms of what's going on? Number 3, in terms of the business model, can any part of this model be adjusted, either by way of making it simpler, maybe more cost effective at the moment, or more revenue generating? So there are companies like Cargill in town that have taken entire labs, as you see on here, and decided to make hand sanitizer rather than whatever they were working. Or is there something you can do that repurposes part of your model in a new direction, or maybe even emphasizes one market segment that at least is holding up versus others that right now are not, right? And obviously, what can go with that is, how can we keep every unneeded structure or policy out of the way right now? Why? Because the idea, given this data that's coming in and what we're responding to, is how can we be responsive? How can we be more flexible? How can we be more resilient? Meaning, if we have to go through another low or another season of lockdown, how can we best deal with that? So I find a simple model allows everybody to think creatively about how we might change that at the moment, or you might change it permanently long term. So I find visualizing that helps us think in new ways about how we might go about doing that. So that's the fourth, just to visualize your capability or your business model system. Number 5, invest in or expand your digital presence in all ways you can. This does not mean necessarily a lot of money, but it means that so much of all of your processes are going to be happening virtually, at least for a year. Obviously, this was already a trend, but what can we do on our websites? What can we do if we have it for an online store or online sales? What can we do with that? Are there things that we can do with Zoom or with WebEx or other kinds of meetings? Obviously, what can we do with email blasts or with our LinkedIn presence or our Facebook presence? Perhaps it's an Etsy presence, Amazon presence. Investing in this will not be just a short term, we've got to do it. It will be direction, because people are having to do this for such a long time, that business will more go in the future. And so it's not going to be a sunk cost. It will be an ongoing ability to use that. So what can we do on channels? What can we do on platforms? Is there an expansion of phone or VoIP that we can do? And you can see in the diagram that it's really thinking about all the ways that we can use digital right now, right? So digital is here to stay, even when this crisis lifts. So this is not only going to be a short-term necessary, but it's going to be a long-term advantage that you're going to stay. So any way you can to invest in digital right now is going to up your success in terms of a strategy to get through this. So it doesn't have to be complicated. It just needs to be, how can we expand it or invest in it in some cases. That's going to help you be successful also. Number 6, create a team of people working on this together. I want you to not think about doing this alone, because you need all the ideas possible. And so you're orchestrating a group to figure it out. You don't have to figure it all out yourself. That's oftentimes when there's stress and crisis, we think we have to do it alone. We don't have to do it. So if you can, in your office or wherever space you're in, that's online, kind of create a space where the data is constantly being updated, vital signs are being looked at consistently, so everybody can see that. Then think outside the bounds. So are there alliances we can make right now that would help both sides? Maybe there are channel partners that some kind of relationship could help both of us. Businesses nearby. So if I've got 4 or 5 stores in the same parking lot area, all fighting with the fact they can't come in the stores, how can we go out to them together? Are there ways that I can work with the complementers to my business or the suppliers in the business to better work towards solutions? Obviously, banks. In some cases, are there ways that we can get either emergency funding or ways to recapitalize parts of the business? Advisory boards or directors. They're not swimming in the water you're swimming in every day. And they might have ideas outside the bound. Your customers. And again, this is the more I communicate right now with the customers, get their feedback, and hear what they're saying and doing, the better I have information to respond appropriately. So that can be really important right now. Crowdsourced ideas. So some people are just getting used to the fact that appropriate kinds of questions out there on a Facebook group or out there in some setting, those ideas can be critical right now to being able to respond in the next a year at least, maybe 2 years at least, in terms of what we're dealing with along with. So that's number 6. Obviously, you don't have to do these in this order. These are just lots of the steps that are going to help you develop successful strategies right now. Number 7 is readjust your time horizon into 5. I'll go over the chart in a moment, but basically these are the horizons that people are operating right now. Weekly is horizon number 1. That could be in 2 days, in 4 days, in 7 days, whatever it is. I've got to think my first horizon is just this week. Monthly is every 2 weeks or 1 month is the second horizon that I'm thinking right now. So these are truncated big time versus what they usually are. Or think in terms of 1 or 2 quarters. So this is what this quarter has been. What's the fourth quarter going to be? And finally, yearly and post-COVID. And then 5 every 2 years. And the best way to think about that is just look at the graph, which is, so how can I consolidate the current competitive advantage? In other words, how can I take advantage of what I've already got? These are choices we've done, capabilities we've already built. That's the weekly kind of monthly processes. Keep your eye, as we were talking about earlier, on something's opening up that would not be hard for us to make a capability or a set of choices that allow us to capture that. Whatever that might be. Could be small or large, could be a very specific market segment that I'm going after. But you know what? Our feedback's telling us that we could do this, and that could be new or at least give us more competitive advantage right now in a particular part of the business. Because most businesses have more than one way of, or at least multiple market segments they're going after. Certain ones may be doing great right now versus others that were originally. And then finally, the horizon, which is much more about uncertain choices. And those right now are more like the yearly and 2 years pieces. And usually for the moment when we're in crisis mode, those are in the background, but it can be very helpful to spend at least a few moments every month thinking about what's post-COVID going to look like, or what's 2 years from now going to look like. So readjust your time horizons to these much shorter ways of thinking is critical right now. You're probably already doing that just by instinct. You're doing that, but I think that's real important to think in terms of those shortened and expanded time horizons for developing successful strategies, right? So, and number 8, it's all about the people that work with you, right? They're experiencing at least some level of anxiety, some cases, some level of grief, in some cases, loss or some kind of stressful change. So number 1, if you can, set a purpose for this next year beyond survival. And I'm very aware that survival may be still the largest reason for this next year. But the statistics will tell you, the research will say, you've got 17% better results in resiliency. This was coming out of 2008, 2009. And it lowers anxiety when people realize we're aiming at something alongside of survival. And it motivates people to not think about how awful it might be or hard that it is, etc. And so I'm aiming at something. Just let's try to name a simple but clear purpose for the next year that we all can focus on together. Obviously, this is important. It's kind of an extension of opening up the communications. But bring in new eyes to see and consult. however that happens, and if it's advisory boards or you know, colleagues that could help you, consultants, whatever it is, new thinking is very helpful in the middle of a crisis. So people that can just look at it, and resiliency is a lot higher when you do this, meaning we can get through another blow if we have to, because you've got new ways of thinking about the stuff that you've thought about a lot, but somebody who hasn't been in the middle of it think differently about your business and your situation. Experiment. Don't be afraid to do small experiments. In fact, that's happening. That's the way that lots of companies are figuring things out there. They're trying this or they're trying that. A good example of this is there was a company that was, selling cosmetics, and there were cosmetics inside of a store. And so obviously the store shut down. They feel like they can't do anything. So what happens? They took their salespeople and they got them online doing those makeover demonstrations online. And so people could still take advantage, although they weren't physically there. And they were able to use those people in a new way, reaching out to women or men or women and around the cosmetic industry. And they've been able to sell a lot just by doing that. There's been gyms that can't come to the gym, so they've changed their model to sell at-home physical workout tools and equipment. And they've just taken it and said, okay, we're going to sell it to them in their homes rather than having them come to us. Whatever experiment means for you, it's about a 30% better survival rate of the last downturn when they experimented with new things. This is a time to allow that to happen. And they don't have to be large, they can be small, but it's about that kind of experimentation to where you can possibly go in the future. And then finally, self-care. In other words, the law of diminishing returns is true. You've got to take care of yourself, and so you can lead others. And so those are really the 8 things I think are critical at the moment. I'd love to answer any questions or comments that you might have.
Dave, thanks so much. You've given us so much to think about here. I do have a question in the chat that's also near and dear to my heart because we're preparing a survey for our members. Do you have any examples or suggestions of well-constructed survey questions that we could ask our current customers if they feel safe with our service, and how do you prod for finding gaps that there might be?
Good. So I can just brainstorm top of mind, but I think that the largest thing about safety is obviously asking what's the specific safety issues that you're concerned about relative to our business. And something like, if we were to open up a time where you could just tour or you could just try out, so I'm thinking of Buck Hill at this moment, how it works, you just come, actually experience it, would that ease your mind? And so in other words, in that case, for example, probably the parents actually being able to go and seeing everything that a particular person has done is going to lower the anxiety than just hearing about it on a website. So is there a way, in other words, the question would be, how could we come and just experience or at least test drive the safety that you're talking about? So in other words, there's nothing better than actually being able to go and see it in action to lower the concerns without necessarily going in the store or going on the ski slope or whatever it is. Is it what can we do that would help you lower that anxiety is the question, and then be able to be responsive to that question and what they tell you.
Excellent, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, so those are all the questions we have in the chat. I think you've shared so much information, and Dave, I'll put you on the spot here. I think there's so much content in your slideshow. If you're willing to share that, we might
I am.
share that out with our nothing like asking you in front of everybody, but
Oh, no,
well,
I'm willing to share this.
and that way you'd also get Dave's contact information if you have any follow-up questions. Dave's been a great friend and mentor to me through many parts of my own career and professional development, and is a wealth of support and information. So thank you for being with us this morning, for sharing your insights.
Yes.
The
And
group.
I'll email you this right after we're done, Jennifer.
Perfect. Thank you, David.
Yes.
Again, David Stark from the David Stark Collective, and you can check out his website for other resources that he has. And we have recorded this session and we'll share it out through our chamber partners. Again, this is a presentation from the Apple Valley, Burnsville, Hastings, Lakeville, and River Heights Chambers of Commerce. Thank you to my partners, and thank you to our sponsor, Comcast Communications, and thanks for everybody that was able to join us this morning. We will post these on our chamber websites and make them available. Have a great Chamber of Commerce day.